It all happened so fast, so unexpectedly, that even now, I can't believe it. I can't believe that my own sister, the one I had always trusted, the one who was supposed to have my back, could betray me in such a cruel, calculated way. And yet, here I am, telling you how it all unfolded, how she didn't just try to hurt me, but she tried to take everything I loved. Everything that made me happy just because she couldn't stand to see me living a life she couldn't have. And the worst part? She had no shame in doing it. I don't know where it all started to go wrong. Maybe it was the years of competition. Maybe it was the feeling of always being in her shadow. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't seem to escape that feeling. Growing up, Emma, my sister, was always the golden child. Everything she touched seemed to turn to gold. She was beautiful, popular, effortlessly smart. I, on the other hand, was always the one in the background. I worked hard, tried my best, but it never felt like it was enough. She was the one everyone wanted to be around, the one everyone looked up to. And maybe that's why I always tried to be the good sister, to be supportive, to always have her back. I never wanted to be the one causing problems, the one to make her feel less than. But looking back, I wonder if I was just setting myself up to be her victim. Emma had always been a bit manipulative. Not in an obvious way, but in subtle little ways that only I seemed to notice. I'd catch her making little snide remarks, or hear her telling people how much better she was than me. But I ignored it. I thought it was just part of being sisters, the petty arguments, the jealousy that sometimes crept in. I never imagined she could go this far. It all started to unravel when Adam came into my life. Adam and I had been together for over a year, and everything about our relationship felt perfect. He was sweet, caring, funny, and yes, undeniably handsome. He made me feel special, in a way no one ever had. But the more time we spent together, the more Emma started to take an interest in him. I noticed it at first in small things. The way she would laugh a little too loudly at his jokes, the way her eyes lingered on him just a bit too long when I wasn't paying attention. It felt off, but I didn't want to overthink it. Maybe I was being paranoid, maybe I was just insecure. But then, one night, at a party thrown by my best friend, it all came to light. Emma and I had been invited along with Adam, of course. It was a celebration, a happy moment, but as soon as we walked in, I could feel something shift. There was a tension in the air between my sister and Adam that I couldn't ignore. It wasn't just the typical friendly banter they usually shared. It was something more, something charged. And that's when Emma pulled me aside. Her smile was wide, but there was something about it that didn't sit right with me. She leaned in close, just enough for me to hear her whisper, "You know, you're so lucky to have him. He's really something, isn't he? So much better looking than you, don't you think?" I froze. I wanted to laugh it off, to tell her she was just being dramatic, but her voice was cold, calculated. And the way she said it, it wasn't a joke. There was no warmth in her words, just something sharp, something dangerous. I smiled awkwardly and walked away, brushing it off as just another one of her odd comments. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The next few weeks only made things worse. I was away for a work trip, a small conference that lasted 3 days. During that time, Emma and Adam supposedly hung out a few times. She told me it was nothing, that they were just catching up. But when I came back, things fell off. Adam seemed distant and Emma was acting like nothing had changed. But I saw the way she looked at him when she thought I wasn't paying attention. The way her eyes followed him around the room when we were out with friends. The way she would touch his arm casually, almost like it was nothing. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. It seemed so out of character for both of them. But then, one day, I stumbled upon their texts. It was innocently enough. I was looking for a photo I had taken on his phone, and there it was. The conversation. The flirty, intimate text that I couldn't ignore. I confronted Adam first. He denied everything, of course. He claimed it was harmless, just friendly banter. He told me I was overreacting. But the more I thought about it, the less I believed him. I knew what I had read. And I knew Emma well enough to see the truth in her actions. But what hurt the most wasn't just the idea that my boyfriend could betray me. It wasn't even the fact that my sister was trying to tear apart my relationship. What hurt the most was realizing that all the years of trying to be a good sister, of doing everything I could to keep the peace, had been in vain. She wasn't my ally. She wasn't my support. She was out to destroy everything I held dear. And the worst part? I had no idea how deep her jealousy and resentment ran. It all came to a head when I found out Emma wasn't just flirting with Adam.
No.
She was planning something far worse. She was already making moves to get him alone, to make him hers. And when I saw the texts, when I saw the plans they had made to meet up while I was at work, I knew I couldn't ignore it anymore. But what I didn't know then, what none of us could have predicted, was how badly karma would hit her when her plan backfired in the worst way imaginable. That night, when I first found those texts, I felt like everything inside me just shattered. It was like an explosion, a moment where everything I feared the most was suddenly right in front of me. I didn't know what to do, how to process it. My hands were shaking, my heart pounding so hard in my chest I thought it might burst. I had to face her. I had to confront Emma. But I didn't know how. I walked straight to her room, my feet dragging with a heaviness I couldn't explain. When I reached her door, I hesitated for a second, took a deep breath, and knocked softly. I knew what I was about to do would change everything, but I had to. I couldn't let this go on any longer. "Come in," she called out from inside, her voice sweet, almost innocent. That should have been a red flag. I should have known that the calmness in her voice wasn't genuine. I opened the door slowly, my heart racing. Emma was sitting on her bed, staring down at her phone, completely oblivious to the storm that was about to break. I took another step inside, and she looked up at me, giving me one of those perfect, fake smiles she was so good at. "Hey, sis, what's up?" she asked, as if nothing was wrong. I could barely breathe. My voice caught in my throat, but somehow I managed to say the words. "I know what you've been doing, Emma. I know about the texts. About you and Adam." Her smile faltered for just a second, a flicker of panic flashing in her eyes before she quickly covered it up. "What are you talking about?" she replied, her voice sharp now, defensive. "You're being paranoid. I don't know what you've seen, but it's nothing." I stepped forward, holding up my phone with the text displayed on the screen. Her face went pale when she saw them. I could see the fear in her eyes, but she quickly composed herself. "It's not what you think," she said, but her words came out too fast, too rehearsed. "Adam and I have always been close, you know that. We're just friends." "Friends?" I spat out. "Do friends send messages like this, Emma? Do friends plan secret meetings behind their sister's back?" My voice cracked with the weight of the betrayal. Her expression faltered again, but she quickly tried to cover it with a laugh. "You're making this out to be something it's not. It's not a big deal. You're overreacting." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How could she be so calm, so dismissive? Did she think I was that naive? Did she really believe she could get away with this? "Emma, I'm not stupid," I said, my voice steady, though every word felt like a punch in the gut. "I've been with Adam for over a year. I trusted you, and now I can't even look at you. How could you do this to me? You're my sister." The silence that followed felt suffocating. For a long moment, Emma just stared at me, her face pale, her lips trembling as if she was about to say something. But then she stopped. Her eyes shifted downward, and for a split second, I saw something I hadn't expected: guilt. She quickly wiped it away, replacing it with her usual defensive mask. "You don't get it, do you?" she said, her voice low and dangerous now. "Adam is everything you're not. He's successful, he's charming, he's better than you. I never meant to hurt you, but when he looked at me the way he did, I couldn't help myself. You were always the good girl, always the one everyone praised for doing the right thing. But me, I wanted something different, something more." My stomach churned as I listened to her words. Was this what she truly thought of me? Was this what she had always felt? A mix of anger and heartbreak flooded through me, but what hurt more than anything was realizing that she had been planning this for so long. I had been nothing more than an obstacle in her eyes, a way for her to get what she wanted. I wanted to scream, to yell at her, but instead, I just stood there, feeling numb. I had never imagined Emma, of all people, could do something like this to me. Not only was she betraying my trust, but she was also showing me just how little she thought of me. All the years of being her older sister, of trying to protect her and show her love, meant nothing. "You really think you can take him from me?" I asked, my voice shaky but strong. "You really think Adam is going to leave me for you?" She hesitated, and for a moment, I thought I had her. But then she gave me that look, the look that confirmed everything I feared. "Why not?" she said, her voice barely a whisper. "You're too boring for him. You're too safe, too predictable. He needs someone exciting. Someone who knows what she wants." And with that, the last shred of doubt I had about her intentions disappeared. Emma wasn't just trying to tear me down. She wasn't just trying to get Adam. She was trying to destroy everything I had built for myself, everything that made me feel secure, everything that made me happy. And the worst part? She wasn't even sorry. She was just angry that I had what she couldn't have. But little did she know, that night wasn't the end of it. No, it was just the beginning. Because karma has a funny way of catching up with people. And Emma was about to learn that the hard way. The next few days were a blur of shock, anger, and disbelief. I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head, trying to make sense of it all. How had I missed the signs? How had I not seen through her lies? I felt betrayed not just by Emma, but by Adam too.
How could he?
How could he let things go this far? But as much as I wanted to confront him, something told me to wait. I had to be sure. I had to gather the proof that would make him face the truth, and face me. For a while, I just kept my distance. I stayed in my room, avoiding Adam's calls, avoiding Emma's attempts at apologizing. But no matter how much she begged, no matter how much she tried to twist the situation, I couldn't bring myself to forgive her. This was more than just a mistake. This was betrayal on a level I couldn't ignore. A week later, I decided to meet Adam in person. He had been texting me nonstop, apologizing for everything, telling me that it was just a mistake, that it would never happen again. But I knew better. Emma's words still echoed in my mind, and something about his apology didn't feel genuine. It felt rehearsed, like he was reading from a script. I agreed to meet him at a local coffee shop, a neutral place where I could keep my distance but still face him. When I walked in, I saw him sitting at a corner table, looking just as perfect as always. But there was no warmth in his eyes anymore. It was just emptiness. I realized then that he wasn't the person I thought he was. He looked up as I approached, standing up to greet me. "Hey, you look great," he said, his voice lacking the usual affection he used to show. I sat down without responding, folding my arms across my chest. "You know why I'm here, don't you?" I said, my voice steady but cold. "I'm done with the lies. I want the truth." Adam's face dropped. For a second, I saw a flicker of guilt, but it disappeared just as quickly. He sat down, running a hand through his hair nervously. "I'm sorry, I really am. It wasn't supposed to happen this way." I leaned in, my eyes narrowing. "No, Adam. You don't get to apologize. Not anymore. You let her manipulate you, and now you've crossed the line. You can't just apologize and expect everything to be okay." "I never meant to hurt you," he said, his voice pleading. "I never wanted to hurt you, but Emma, she's different. She's exciting, she's—"
"Stop."
I cut him off, slamming my hand down on the table, surprising even myself with the force of it. "Exciting? Is that what you're going to tell me? That she's exciting, so it was okay to betray me? What happened to the guy I thought I knew? What happened to the Adam who promised me he would never hurt me?" I could see him faltering, the words no longer coming as easily. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding my gaze. "It's not like that. I don't know what happened, okay? I wasn't thinking clearly." "Right," I said, scoffing. "You weren't thinking clearly. And now look at what you've done. You ruined everything. You ruined us." He took a deep breath, as if steeling himself for what he was about to say. "I didn't mean for things to get out of hand. But I'm with her now, and I don't know what to tell you." I stared at him for a long moment, letting the weight of his words sink in. I had always known there was something off about him, some hidden part of him that I couldn't reach. But now it was clear. Adam wasn't the man I thought he was. And what hurt the most was that he didn't even care enough to fight for us. He was just giving up. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. So that's it then? You're just walking away? Fine. Go ahead. But don't ever come near me again. You and Emma deserve each other. I turned to leave, but his voice stopped me. Please don't go, Adam said, desperation in his tone. We can fix this. I want to fix this. I paused, my back still turned to him. I couldn't look at him anymore. I couldn't even stomach the thought of him begging. No, Adam, I said, my voice steady, but filled with finality. There's no fixing this. You've already made your choice. And with that, I walked out of the coffee shop, leaving him behind, and a part of me knew that I had just made the right decision. I couldn't fix someone who didn't want to be fixed. That night, after everything that had happened, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing, replaying the conversation over and over again. It wasn't just Adam who had betrayed me, it was Emma too. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something. Emma wasn't going to stop here. She had already proven that she was willing to do whatever it took to get what she wanted, and now that Adam was out of the picture, I had a feeling she wasn't going to back off. The next few weeks were a roller coaster. Emma tried everything to get back into my good graces, apologizing, sending me gifts, even begging me to forgive her. But no matter what she did, I couldn't let her back in. The trust was gone. The sister I thought I knew, the one I had loved and protected, was no longer there. But what she didn't know was that karma was coming for her. And this time, it wasn't just going to hurt a little. It was going to hurt a lot. It wasn't long before I found out that Emma had moved on, just as I'd suspected. She wasn't the type to stay down for long, and I knew that if she couldn't have Adam, she'd find someone else to latch onto. I just didn't expect it to happen so quickly. A month after our confrontation, I was at home one evening, scrolling through social media, when I saw it. A photo of Emma, her arm draped over the shoulder of a man I didn't recognize. They were standing outside a luxury restaurant, looking all smiles, as if the world was their oyster. The caption read, "Found someone who really gets me." I stared at the photo for a moment, the knot in my stomach tightening. Who was this guy? And why did he look so familiar? I zoomed in on his face, and that's when it hit me. He wasn't just anyone. He was married. I had seen him around before, at my parents' gatherings, always with his wife, someone who had been in the family circle for years. His name was Richard, and he was well known for his involvement in charity work and his high-profile career in the business world. I froze, my heart pounding. How could Emma be this reckless? This wasn't just some fling. She was going after a married man, someone who had everything to lose. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, not just with Adam, but with someone's husband? I didn't know whether to feel furious or sorry for the wife, but what I didn't know was that I wasn't going to sit back and let Emma get away with this. I immediately picked up my phone and started texting a close friend of mine, Chloe, who worked as a private investigator. I had worked with her in the past on a few small cases, and she had a knack for digging up dirt. If there was anything shady going on, she'd find it. After a few messages back and forth, Chloe agreed to help. The plan was simple: get the evidence, then confront Emma. I didn't know what I was going to do with that evidence yet, but I knew it was time to take matters into my own hands. Emma wasn't going to get away with destroying people's lives just because she felt entitled to whatever or whoever she wanted. The next few days were filled with activity. Chloe went into full investigation mode, checking social media profiles, talking to mutual acquaintances, and even reaching out to people who worked with Richard. Soon, she had gathered all the information I needed. Emma and Richard were not just casually seeing each other, they were having an affair. And Richard's wife had no idea. But the plot thickened. As Chloe continued digging, we discovered something far more alarming. Emma wasn't just in it for a good time. She had plans to get Richard to leave his wife. She had been telling people that she and Richard were in love, and she was convinced he would leave his family for her. At first, I thought it was just another one of Emma's delusions, but as Chloe uncovered more, I realized Emma was seriously scheming. She was playing a dangerous game, and the stakes were much higher than I could have ever imagined. I didn't know what to do with this new information. On one hand, I wanted to confront Emma, to tell her that I knew everything, and that I would expose her for what she was. But I also knew this wasn't the kind of thing you confronted in a moment of rage. This was bigger than a petty betrayal. It was a full-scale disaster waiting to happen. So I did what I thought was best. I bided my time, watching Emma's every move from a distance, seeing how far she'd go. She had no idea I was onto her, and that, in itself, was almost satisfying. It was as if she thought she could get away with anything. But fate had its own plans. Just as I was about to confront her, I received a call from Chloe that turned everything upside down. "Listen," Chloe said, her voice urgent. "You need to hear this. Emma's made a huge mistake. Richard, he's been caught. His wife found out about the affair, and now she's threatening to go public with everything. Emma's name is already on the list of people to be investigated. She's in deep trouble." I couldn't believe it. Emma's world was crashing down around her, and it was all because of her own actions. The web she had woven was unraveling, and I was the last person she would have expected to be watching. The following week, the news spread like wildfire. Emma's affair with Richard became the talk of the town, and not just any town, my family's town. People who had once considered her the sweet, innocent younger sister now saw her for what she really was, a homewrecker who had no problem destroying lives for her own selfish desires. Richard's wife filed for divorce, and the fallout was brutal. But the worst part? Emma hadn't seen it coming. She had thought she was playing the game, but in reality, the game was playing her. As for Richard, his career took a major hit. His reputation was destroyed, and his family was torn apart. The affair had cost him everything, and now, Emma was left to pick up the pieces of her shattered world. But even as I watched her fall from grace, part of me felt no satisfaction. It wasn't about revenge. It was about watching her face the consequences of her actions. This was karma, plain and simple. And it was hitting her harder than I ever could have. As Emma's world crumbled, I found myself standing in the middle of it, watching from the sidelines as everything she had worked for came crashing down. But as the weeks passed, something unexpected began to happen. I started feeling nothing. It wasn't the sense of victory I thought I would feel. It wasn't even satisfaction. I had watched her make all the wrong choices, hurt people, and destroy lives. She had tried to take everything from me, and in doing so, she had alienated everyone around her. Yet, as I saw her face the consequences, I realized that the worst punishment wasn't the public shame or the divorce. It was the isolation. Emma had always prided herself on her ability to charm people, to make them adore her. But now, everyone knew what she had done. People turned their backs on her one by one, no longer willing to pretend they didn't see the damage she had caused. Her once large circle of friends shrank to nothing. Her reputation was in tatters, and no one seemed to care anymore. At first, I watched her from a distance, expecting her to come crawling back, begging for forgiveness or trying to regain control of the situation. But she never did. In fact, she vanished. No one knew where she had gone, and honestly, I didn't care enough to try and find out. All I knew was that she was no longer a part of my life, and I had no intention of letting her back in. Then came the final twist, the one I never saw coming. About 2 months after everything had unfolded, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Emma. At first, I hesitated to open it. What could she possibly have to say to me now? After everything that had happened, was there even a point? But curiosity won out, and I opened the envelope. Inside, there was a short, handwritten note. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that was hard to ignore. Asterisk, I messed up. I know that. I can't take back what I've done, and I won't pretend it was anyone else's fault but mine. But I want you to know, I've learned the hard way. I lost everything I thought mattered, and now I have nothing left. I hope you can somehow find it in yourself to forgive me, though I know I don't deserve it. I've hit rock bottom, and I don't know what comes next. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. Asterisk. I sat there, staring at the letter for what felt like an eternity. Was this genuine? Was Emma really sorry? Or was this just another one of her manipulative attempts to gain sympathy? I couldn't tell. But what struck me most was the tone of the letter. Emma wasn't asking for forgiveness. She wasn't demanding pity. She was simply acknowledging her mistakes, something she had never done before. And for the first time in a long while, I saw her for what she was: human. It didn't make what she had done any less terrible. It didn't erase the pain she had caused, not only to me but to so many others. But in that moment, I realized something important. My revenge, my satisfaction from watching her fall, had never been about seeing her lose everything. It was about seeing her face the truth of who she had become, and how that truth ultimately turned her into a shell of the person she once was. I didn't write her back. Instead, I put the letter in a drawer, alongside the other remnants of my past. It was a reminder of how far Emma had fallen, but also a reminder of the choice I had made, not to follow her down the same dark path. I had learned my own lesson through all of this. Sometimes, people's actions speak louder than their words, and the best thing you can do is let them live with the consequences of their own choices. There's no need to chase after revenge when karma does all the work for you.